Yeah, thanks for having some time here in your studio. You're our big guest now. Okay, so
Great.
Thanks for taking some time, right?
Of course.
First of all, of course, let's talk about your recent outcoming score, Thor: The Dark World. You just completed that one, right?
I did. I mean, like days ago, pretty much. We did it at Abbey Road, and yeah, it was. The movie's great. Loved working on it. Really went for some mythological heft. It's a very. It's kind of like one of those scores that, for me, as a composer, as just like a kid growing up, it was kind of the ultimate canvas for me that I always wanted to paint on because. I mean, I love doing Iron Man 3 as well. I was a blast. But the thing that I really love about working on something like Thor is that it is combining two kinds of movies that I really love. One of which is science fiction, outer space, flying ships, lasers, that kind of thing, with kind of a medieval wearing kind of the sword and sandal cape kind of feel, and those two types of movies are really just fun musically, and this is one of those rare kind of times where they merge.
How exactly would you describe the sound of your score in general? I mean, is it a hybrid score, or is it just orchestral with choir or whatever?
It's sonically unique for me, but it is dealing with the natural world of instruments. Certainly, the overall drive was size. I mean, it was, we wanted a huge sound for Thor. He's just like, all the characters are larger than life, and so a lot of brass and a lot of choir, and then supported by a hefty amount of strings and percussion, but all live. It's not a hybrid type of score. It has a sound though that is kind of hyper symphonic in the sense that it's just kind of a style of playing and recording that I think evokes almost like a requiem-esque kind of feel, where it just at times when the theme's playing, it feels like it is born out of kind of epic scores from the past. You almost wanted to feel like these themes have been around forever. So on the whole, it dealt with that a lot of the brass and the choir singing the themes, Thor, Odin, Asgard, and that the character of Loki is really important, and in that sense, we wanted to go very counter to what typical villain music would be. So his main instrument is actually the harp.
The harp,
and
Loki. Oh.
Yeah, it's the harp, and he kind of has this clockwork intelligence to him that makes you love to hate him, and there's an ambivalence to his character. I think people really are drawn to him. He's kind of seductive in that way, and so instead of going for the really arch bad guy kind of feel, it has almost an alluring quality to his theme. So there's all these things, and of course, this is the first that we've seen Thor post Avengers, in much the same way Iron Man was post Avengers, and which there's a definite shift in his character that needed to be done, which kind of informed the sound. Because now I think he was more like, it's like boy into man. The first movie, he's not only a fish out of water on Earth, kind of fumbling around trying to find his way, but he's also he's not quite ready for the throne. And then in this movie, he's fully evolved and knows his place in the universe. And so it had to have a different feel than it had to evolve in that way musically from the first movie.
Wow. So how much time did you for the whole thing?
I can remember the day. I remember what day it was. I don't know the date. I'd have to look it up, but it'd be easy to find because it was the day after, I believe, the premiere to Now You See Me. It was somewhere in the summer, early summer, and that's when I started I got a phone call about it from Marvel, and so I was just kind of a discussion, and they knew that I loved the character of Thor. It was something that, like many of the Marvel characters, I've always been into since I was a kid, but Thor in particular, and so we had just and Iron Man, I think, came out like 2 weeks before that or 3 weeks before that, maybe. So and so I came back and just started writing immediately. Once I'd seen, actually, first they showed me the film and everything, but once that ball kind of got rolling, and then we just went full blast all the way up till very recently. It was a lot of music, of course, like all epic films of the sort. When I'm working on them, the movie is a lot longer than what you see in the theater. So I scored. I scored more. I wrote more music than the running time of the film, of course. And which was the same with Iron Man, and so but it really was something that, since this movie takes place, where it does, it felt like it was a completely refreshing take on the superhero genre, and it was fun because Iron Man 3 is a very specific kind of superhero vibe with like a human being in a suit and mechanical, but he's a billionaire, he's a badass, he's a playboy, all that stuff, which has more, it lends itself towards kind of like a superhero but meets Bond kind of thing, and in this case, this is it's Thor all through and through, and the only references like visually you can almost take from these characters are things like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, if you had those worlds meeting, and so you have, it's a really high bar, but it was so different from Iron Man 3 as a film, and the musical approach had to be that it was a really refreshing film to score.
Nice. So you've been mentioning Iron Man 3 now, and Now You See Me, which was an awesome score. I just loved that one. The 7/8 is just loved it. I have to watch myself that I don't mention every score you did this and last year, because they all had something unique. And we've been scoring a lot this year, a lot last year. So how do you manage to keep track of it all? Because is it all just a matter of a good schedule, or are you just a fast writer? I mean, what's your secret, man?
I think in this world of film composing, there has to be both. You need really, you need to be able to write fairly quickly and stay on your feet when you get knocked down, because there's always curveballs. I mean, you have a lot of creative opinions from a lot of different people, producers, directors, executives, and of course you have the opinions of your own music team that you want to trust, and also I'm my own worst critic, so these things do take time. I've managed to keep a pretty fast pace over the last decade of scoring, just because every once in a while, I'll catch wind of my credit list or the IMDb, and it frightens me how many things there's been over the years. But I think also you need good management, and just really try to roll with the punches when scheduling gets a little weird, because of course some films get delayed and then they run right into another movie, and I feel like as a composer you probably shouldn't be doing this unless you, when in a pinch and push comes to shove, that you can really just burn through all-nighters and score a few things at the same time, because it just every once in a while you schedule it so it's not that way, but every once in a while there's just nothing you can do than that
around it. Yeah. So just to mention a few titles of your recent scores, can you tell me a little bit about Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah, Sleepy Hollow. It's funny, that came right on the heels of Now You See Me as well, and I just these great guys are colleagues and friends through the years. Bob Orsi and Alex Kurtzman. They produce and write a lot of stuff, and we met on Eagle Eye years back, and then they went on to do, they wrote Star Trek and they produced those movies, and before that Transformers, and now they're doing Spider-Man and the new Mummy movies, and of course they also produce Hawaii Five-O, which I score as well with Keith Power, and Transformers Prime, which I did with Bob Lidecker. But so on when Sleepy Hollow came up, I just finished Now You See Me for Alex and Bob as well. They produced and wrote that, and Len Wiseman, the director, was doing the pilot, whom I know as well, and it was one of those things where the timing was a little tricky, of course, but we thought, why don't we do this? And the approach was a completely different sound. It was, instead of going like huge or electronic or like anything specifically that kind of you hear that really fits with either movies or TV, we thought we'd go with a score that is mostly 3 cellos, a violin, and a dulcimer, and so it's live, so it's kind of this like oddball quartet. And then I play some wacky instruments, and so does Robert Lidecker, who's a co-composer on it. And we every once in a while have like a solo vocalist or something like that doing a soprano kind of line. But it's supposed to be a bit Baroque and old-timey and fun and mysterious and all those things. And it's a really fun one to do, and we're happy that it got picked up for next season as well. So
yeah, nice. So that's a great one. Also, Standing Up was a fresh score, including great melodies, a very sweet one. When I think about scores like that, do you look out for such projects sometime, or do people always come to you and you can choose whatever you'd like to score, or how do you choose a movie?
It's a little of both. Nowadays, most of my schedule is working with people I have relationships with, and in the case of Standing Up, I've scored a few movies for DJ Caruso, the director, and he loved this book for years, since I think the mid '80s or something, and he always wanted to make it into a movie. So finally, he was able to push it through. It was an indie film, and we were actually working on his next movie, which is after this movie, and talking about ideas for Vertigo. And he's like, you know what, I think we're able to squeeze this movie in, Standing Up, and really thematic and heartfelt and really honest. And the crazy thing is like so many of the movies this year, all the projects have like nothing to do with each other. When I stand back, except for the fact that 2 of the movies are in the Marvel universe, like those 2 scores aren't, I wouldn't consider them alike, Thor and Iron Man, but certainly Standing Up has like nothing to do with it. Now You See Me was, it's like more like a kind of a throwback, bit Lalo Schifrin-y kind of
exactly,
score.
Yeah, Spanish kind of old.
Yeah, and then you have Assassin's Creed, which is all gypsy music. It's like pirate gypsy stuff from the 18th century. So it's been cool because it makes it so like each project's really fresh. And certainly Standing Up was no exception. That was really fun to do.
So it's also just a matter of relationships. What kind of project comes to you, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I'm just thinking. If you think about it, like Assassin's Creed came about because I had done Far Cry for Ubisoft. Standing Up came about from Eagle Eye and all the DJ's movies. Now You See Me came from working before with Alex and Bob's, same with Sleepy Hollow, and then of course Thor came about because of Iron Man 3. I would say the new relationship for the year for me was Marvel, because although we had been friendly over the years and I knew that they enjoyed my music, I never worked with them directly. So we actually and then of course there's other Marvel projects. One of which is coming out with Thor, which is the Marvel Studios fanfare. It's like the logo
I heard
music.
about that. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Yeah, so that'll be before their movies. You know, as because they have a proper logo with cool like this graphics, and it has storybook, comic book kind of thing. It was really, really great, and they asked me to do that, and that, you know, so that I don't think I would have been asked to do that unless I'd done Iron Man and Thor this year. So I think, just the way movies come about now. I mean, I used to really go after movies. I'd see something in the trades, and I'd be like, I want to go after that because I didn't know anyone, you know. And that's how my career started, just really going for it and having a couple of lucky breaks with someone having to have sent my score to a really tiny movie to another director. And then I think in the like a few years after that, I think most of my movies actually came about from editors temping in my music into the movies they're editing. And that became a thing that, like, I mean, it must have been like 40 movies in a row I did because of that. And then of course it spreads, you know, like, and then you do more scores, and then those are tempted in elsewhere. And then eventually now it's gotten to the point where I've worked with enough people that I really enjoy, and are great creative colleagues and of mine that they all have projects going, so you kind of know ahead of time what you'll probably be doing over the next year.
It's you know, it sounds like, you know, playing with your friends in the backyard. You know, can you do this for me? Can you do this project?
Yeah, for sure. It's you kind of you get booked up with that kind of thing. But I'm always, you know, every year there's always a few new people to the party, you know, and so we'll see. I think there's some kind of mathematical equation that we could probably figure out that everything is going to like implode on itself within, you know, 7.2 years or something. But for now, it seems to be doing fine, and I'm alive. So
next up is Pixar knocking on the door. You know, Brian. No.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's another thing. Is like the relationship with Disney I've had for a long time, and now Marvel is with Disney, so it's cool. It's all
a matter of time, man. I mean, you know, there's something coming up.
That's great.
So when we met 3 years ago, you told us how you got into the world of film music. So we do know that already, but you know, I do understand that there's a great story about Bartender, your first score. You know, can you talk a little about how you got that gig that time?
It's funny. I just saw the kind of the focal point of that story, which is basically the short of it is, the director Gabe Torres had heard a song I had written. It's like a tune, you know, with singing and everything. And it was a rock tune, and he wanted to use it for the end title of the movie. And I kind of heard about this through the producers, who contacted me and said, you know, we'd love to license this song. I said, great, but I would love to score the film. And of course, I had no credits to kind of show that I could do that. And so they went to the director, and he's like, no, we want to get so-and-so. I don't remember who it was, but one of the producers who I kind of knew, and I'd done a favor for him. I don't remember what it was, something like with introducing him to a band, or and I said, hey, do you have the address of the director? He said, yeah, I do. And I said, okay, I won't be weird or anything, but I'm just going to go to the director's house, and I might bring him some music to kind of show him because I read the script. So I wrote some music for it, and I also had some other stuff. There was a Requiem that I'd written and recorded before. There's a couple. I put some stuff, and I had it with me. And so I showed up unannounced at his house, and he was watching dailies of like pickup shoots that he was working on for the movie. And he thought I was pretty weird. It kind of looked at me like, you know, I was maybe, you know, I don't know. It was just strange. It's almost like, you know, you're being punked. And so he brought me in, and he was watching some scenes, and I just played some music. It happened to fit the scene really well. And he just got really pumped about it and said that he was really open to have me scoring the film. And then shortly thereafter, I ended up on set as we became better friends. And I ended up, weirdly enough, I don't know if I even told you this before, but I ended up in the movie. And the strange thing was there was a scene with a bunch of like in the movie, it's about bartenders that are trying to break into Hollywood. So they had me, instead of play the piano player, which there was a piano player there in the scene, they had me play an actor, which of course is the last thing that I so they had me, they could have had an actor play an actor. Wouldn't that make sense? No, they had the non-actor play the actor, who is a complete jackass in the scene. He's this big, total egomaniac. Anyway, yeah, that's my. And I remember on IMDb, it actually had me listed as actor in there for a while, and I had them like take it down. It was too embarrassing. But anyway, Gabe's awesome, and we've remained friends. And he directed Break, so we reunited for that. And
together again, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And then I conducted at the Rez concert last Saturday, and he was there in the audience, which was great. And I saw him there, so it's pretty fun. First director, yep.
Was that the score where you recorded all kinds of stuff and then it got lost on your hard drive, or what?
Oh my God, yes, that's exactly what it was. I worked on the score for like a year, or close to a year maybe. And I had it on hard drives and backup drives. Like I had 2 backup drives. So it was on 3 drives. And I have no idea how this happened.
Still no idea.
Still no idea. I mean, an absolute disaster. We were towards the end. And I mean, this wasn't just like scored. These were like songs with vocals and drum tracks.
It's like everything in it.
Everything. 90-minute score, 14 songs, like the whole thing. And it just died, and all the backups died. It must have been some kind of, I don't know, virus or something. And I didn't tell a soul.
Very first score, and that happened.
Yeah, I ended up, I send the drives up to this company up in San Francisco they recover like hard drives from laptops that are on ocean liners that sink, and they're able to recover it, and they were not able to recover my stuff. So I got back the report, in like also the stuff they recovered, and out of the bazillions of audio files, it was like 5 audio files are like labeled like audio 1301. It was like a 2-second take of me just going like just like that, and then like one like little vocal snippet, and like 2 seconds of a drum fill.
Oh my God.
So I ended up redoing the entire thing very quickly and tried to do it both from memory, and also I had stereo recordings, but I needed they needed the full recording stems. So I went in there and redid the whole thing. Never told the director till like years later. And I was like, man, I don't know if you realize what happened, but so it was an early kind of lesson, and I've kind of kept it to this day, where when disasters strike, the amount of disasters that have struck that no one knows about, that not even my agents or people really close to me have any idea, like disaster with a capital D, like that bad on other things, have happened many times over the years. And I just kind of have always, that lesson to me was like, solve it on your own, because if you go out and just try to get people, it's just, then you're spreading disaster. So I kept it to myself, and that was tough, but I did it.
It's an awesome story. Just right in the beginning of your career, it's just like
first movie
like that. It's just
yeah. It was literally like I won the lottery to get the movie, and then I won the lottery in reverse. Like right, whatever winning the lottery in reverse is. It's like both were 1 out of a million, and that's whatever. Yeah.
So just a little bit about your daily working process. What's a typical day at work for you? I mean, I remember not too long ago there was a magazine that wrote about your daily schedule. That was interesting. You remember that? About
I do.
It's just like a 2-hour nap, and then on we go. Can you give us some details of what's a typical day or a typical week for you?
It depends, but most of the time it's me working very late. I tend to work late because in the day the phone rings and I'm doing interviews or doing discussions with producers or going to a meeting or whatnot. So I really start and I think today will be no exception for me. It's 5:41 p.m. and after we talk, that's when I'll start writing tonight, and I'll go to probably 4 in the morning. I know you're a night owl. It must be what, 2:40 or something back a.m. right now.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm just like not just insomniac, but just people like us get creative at night, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely nocturnal. But the only problem is I'm a vampire that's forced to be awake in the day. So
yeah, that's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah, but so most of the time it's getting up, and if I get some writing or something done in the day, then great. Most of the time, if I'm doing music in the day, it's something that's scheduled, like I'm conducting, in which then it's just that's how it is. I'm not available, But I've had lots of times I've been up on the podium more than a few times where I'm at the podium conducting. And I have my iPhone out in front of me, and I'll see a text message come through or something, and I will be in between a take reading this, like, some crazy things happen, and Brian, we need this, and it's on some, like, and I will, like, be, writing back in between takes and stuff. I mean, I do that all the time, which is kind of distracting, and it's unfortunate, but it actually is needed because sometimes projects hold together by tiny threads.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's the kind of multitasking between social media and devices and the real life, right?
Oh yeah,
you should
for sure.
You should see actually. I did a movie with my best buddy in Los Angeles. Disconnected. It premiered last week at the ArcLight Film Festival.
Yes. No, I've seen all about this. I didn't know that you did that.
Yeah, I did the score for that, and my best friend actually
awesome.
talked to me about that, 3 years ago, just right, about the time when I met you, and now it's done. We got that into some film festivals, and there's something more, some things coming up for it, but we still try to find some people because he's working at Sony, and we try to find some people who could push the whole thing, but in general, that movie is I'm
trying to think that, and maybe, how do I know? How did I see? I wonder if it was maybe on your page that I clicked on it. Okay.
I'm pretty sure I sent you the trailer for that.
That's it. Of course, I was like, "What?" Okay, yes. Okay, well, yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, that was
one of the greatest things that you can get out there regarding that kind of topic,
No, I'm with you, man. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I finally I have connected what I disconnected with.
So, in between all that work, how do you relax? Like, where do you go on a Saturday night if you're free to party or you just enjoy the day? What do you do?
Well, I love to have fun. I don't do it as much as I'd like, but for me, I would say most of the time when I go out, it's going to be one of two things. It's going to be being a foodie, going to like a restaurant that I really love, but more likely than not, it's going to be music. I'm going to be going to see a band or a DJ or a music festival. Went to Coachella this last couple of years, but yeah, like a lot of festivals, South by Southwest. There's Coachella. There's a lot of EDM festivals. Like next weekend, it's like Dead Mouse and Pretty Lights and all that, like locally here. But there's a ton of them. I was in Atlanta for a festival really recently, and I mean it's music, like and then there's tons of bands here. There's clubs there where you have like rock bands, there's punk bands, there's hip hop DJs, there's EDM music always popping off here and there in LA and of course elsewhere in New York and what. So I'll travel, I'll see bands. I saw Depeche Mode last week. I mean I just, it's kind of an obsession of mine. So it tends to bleed into what I do at night, and I'm going to have fun. Sometimes I'll go and hang with my friends too. Most of them are musicians, and so we end up, if we go for a drink or a beer or whatever, we end up like, hey, that club down there, so-and-so's playing. Really? Oh, yeah. Do you know these guys? No. And then you get to know the bands And I mean, I come from that culture anyway, so that's like comfort food and home to me is going to see a band. It's it's some seedy joint, with really loud music. It's kind of my thing.
Sure. Since you use Pro Tools and all various other programs and plugins, can you just very shortly talk about the gear you use, the samples and all that?
I live track tons of stuff. Keyboards and synth modules and all that. The list is way too long, but it's pretty much everything that exists. Then samples. I mean, most of it's run through Vienna Ensemble Pro, but it kind of houses like my contact samplers, which is 5 bazillion, and I have all my samples loaded in there. And then I also have all my electronic stuff and everything on a different rig. Then I have all my guitars and everything hooked up through amps and DIs and microphones. And of course I use my piano all the time. You're actually right now I've got the laptop set on the Steinway.
Of course, I remember that.
You've been here, yeah. And then the drum kit, and then there's all the percussion and vibraphones and cellos and all that. And then also there's keyboards, and like I also have CDJ 2000 Nexus and mixer. Like there's DJ stuff in my studio by the board as well. And there's a full DJ rig as well. So there's just stuff like all over the place. And I wouldn't say there's any one particular kind of normal path. If I'm doing a traditional score, typically I'm mocking up with the contact libraries that are either custom or whatnot to create the sound. And then the instruments that I can play, I will play live into Pro Tools. And then we mix in Pro Tools as well.
Yeah. So you also you often used some very extraordinary sounds that you recorded. Like I remember Break right now. The car. Was that your very own? Was that your car?
Oh yeah. There's it's funny. I used in reality I used a bunch of different cars. All of which either were mine or my music editor Joe. And different like clickers kind of sounded different, and different fans and motors, like the motor startup, and actually just hitting different parts of the car and would create these sounds, and then I filtered them all, and even like the windshield wiper ended up being one of the main sounds in the main title. It's strange because you listen to it and it kind of doesn't really. It just sounds like music. You're like, oh, that sounds a little weird, but it doesn't really. It's not like. Oh, that's like a car horn. It's not really like that, when I say that I used the car for an instrument, Yeah, it's a little outside of the realm. I mean, the thing I try to do as much as possible is when I'm using instruments in certain scores, if I can somehow bring something that I know no one else is using, then that's going to make me happy. That's why I really like to play a lot of the instruments myself, because I'll tune things differently. And even if it's like a same guitar, I will have different stringing on it. I'll have different, different humbucker on it, and different pickups and different setup on the neck, and go through a different pedal board and there's so many variations on it that if I get out of using samples, I think that's the thing that kind of the sample thing can work in two directions. One, it can kind of make someone sound like someone else if they want to sound like someone else, but it can also homogenize and kind of pasteurize the sound of people. So I tried to, as much as possible, just kind of throw in some of my own things that I know at least won't be duplicated easily, at least.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the always been in the orchestrating part, and so when it comes to orchestrating or to the orchestrator, how do you communicate with them? Like, do you finish a mock-up and directly send it to them, or like to Robert L. High, or do you just notate some stuff yourself sometimes, or what is the technical process in that?
It totally depends. I mean, the more time I have, the more I'll commit it to paper. But the one thing that I've never really been able to do, I can't kind of leave it as a sketch, because one, even if it's just for myself, I kind of really want to know exactly what it's going to be like. So when I conduct it, I'm not wasting time changing things. So typically it's very detailed by the time it gets out the door, and then there's the takedown process that the orchestrators go through, and then make sure that everything makes sense for the musicians. There's I try to pay attention to string lines so I can take advantage of open strings on the when the cellos are playing in a certain register, and leaping on arpeggiations, or for brass, taking into account that they want flats in this key or whatever. And I try to take all those things into account, but the orchestrators are really they'll spend a lot of time making sure that that's all on the page in the way that makes it easiest for them to play.
Yeah. So just one of my last questions. We know that, for example, Marvel, refuses to score in LA, but are there any specific, musicians that you always want to have in your orchestra when you're scoring in the LA?
For sure.
Are you actually in the process of, contracting your orchestra? Are you just like, I want that guy, guy has to play the trumpet for me, or...
I think Marvel would want... because I love scoring in LA. I love scoring everywhere, but just because I do live here and I know the musicians here, I do like keeping it here if at all possible. And if they ever can work something out, Marvel, I'm sure, would be happy to record here. But when I'm recording in LA, there's a certain group of people that I've learned to. There's two things. Learned that they're really great at sight reading and intonation, and I can tell just from the zillions of times that I've conducted them that who's doing what. But at the same time, even more than that, they've become friends and trusted allies, where I can really say, is that okay, or should we put the harmonic on the back row of the violins instead of the front row, or maybe we should divisi this differently, or I'll do it and I'll be like, okay, I'll try this, and then I'll look at one of my trusted allies and they'll give me that look like, that kind of sucks, or what, and I can really, and so here, since I know them, I know they'll be honest, and often when I conduct elsewhere, everything is awesome all the time, it's just impossible. It's not the case. And I'll conduct, what do you think of that? And they're like, great, fantastic. I'm like, wait, I don't want to hear that. That doesn't make me any better. I want to steal the souls and the expertise of the people that know more about it than I do, and then take credit for it. But like I really do. I want to the sum total talent in the room with any particular orchestra. These people have studied their instrument all their lives. I don't have. There's no possible way that I could know their instruments better than them. So that's why I love having this kind of a repeat business with the certain players, as long as they behave themselves, right? But yeah, I'm very, very good friends and very close with many of the players here in LA for sure.
Yeah, I guess so. So, that's the last question. What's up next for you, Brian? What's coming up?
I have Into the Storm for New Line and Warner Brothers. That's going to be awesome. It comes out next year. I'm writing it now, and I really love that theme. I can't wait for that one. I want you to hear that theme for that one. I'm really, really enjoying that. Also, another one that I'm really excited about is Ninja Turtles. We're teaming up with Jonathan Liebesman, a good friend of mine and colleague as well. And then there's Fast 7, of course, which I'll be back driving around for that one, and that is insane. The movie is crazy, and
like really, all of them, right? Exactly.
It's gonna be great. I mean, it's man, they just keep getting better, and there's a bunch of other things in the works, but those are the ones kind of in the immediate future.
Nice. So there's a lot coming up, and we look forward to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, definitely. And you got to check out Thor: Dark World. Okay, great.